as everybody else. They're like, what? My cigar that I'm paying $5 for now is going to be 10? Or the one I used to buy for $50 a box is now going to be 150? You kidding me? I won't pay it. In 2007 is when S-chip came out. That was when the initial S-chip bill was written. The cigar tax was going to get increased from, it was basically a cap of 5 cents. And on the bill it was written where the cap would go up to $10. Originally the Cigar Association of America thought it was a typo because they were like 5 cents to $10. They thought they put the decimal point in the wrong place. They didn't. It was going to be $10, up to $10. They raised the percentage as well, and it had a floor tax in it. So the floor tax meant that if S-chip passed, as a retailer, you'd have to take inventory, and everything you own that's in your possession, you would have to pay the federal tax on. So when this came out, my downtown store that I asked you to about going to look at, it's a big store, really nice. I just signed a 5-year lease. The rent is huge over there. So I'm on the hook for 60 months of rent, whether you open it or not. Personally guaranteeing I'm paying 60. The next 5 years, I'm paying you, this rent. I had $1 million build out, building the store and construction. I signed a contract with Turner Construction. They had started digging the footers. Of course, before all I did this, I had my financing lined up with SunTrust Bank. And then when they heard about this S-chip bill, they knew that if this went through, that I'd go out of business. So they pulled my financing for a project that I already started. I didn't have the money. If I didn't find the money, I was in a problem. So a handful of retailers, a handful of manufacturers, Rocky Patel, and after that other people started joining in. But we went to Washington and started. Rocky was probably in the same position as me. He'd probably go out of business too. And so we just started going up there in a panic mode. I remember my first meeting here, a congressional meeting, Mike Cusano and Christian Eiroa came up, and we met with my Congressman Rick Keller. He's the guy that's actually doing the ribbon cutting for the store when it finally opens. But went to talk to him about the issues, and he's like, man, I'm with you. Because I've never voted for a tax increase. I don't support this cigar tax, but it's $10 or 10 cents. It made me feel a little bit better that there's some hope out there, that not every politician wants to put you out of business. We realized right then that, number one, the premium cigar industry, we didn't have our act together. Cigar Association was representing the cigar manufacturers. But the problem is that our own cigar community was divided, because the mass market brands, and we need to define what mass market is. Mass market are the cigars that are sold in drugstores and gas stations. Your mass market category in the premium cigar industry, we were butting heads over what the tax should be, because the lower the cap is, the higher the percentage rate the mass market is going to have to pay. The higher the cap, less burden on them, more on the premiums. So even within the industry, we're having a big fight over who's paying what. There was a lot of, all right? So we're going up against CAA, who has a huge history of political lobbying and influence, and here we are. We didn't have, dude, we were called the cowboys, I think they were calling us, because we were walking the halls of Congress just like, that's what we were. We weren't lobbyists. But in the end, that helps. It helps when you have individual business owners coming up there telling your story, because you're much more trustworthy. You don't have some hidden agenda. These guys they're here trying to survive. Even though we didn't have the 10 years of lobbying and 10 years of fundraising contributions and all that other stuff behind us, our story resonated. So the one thing we learned is that the consumers, there's X amount of cigar shops in America. I think IPCPR at the time is like 1,200 members, representing maybe 3,000-4,000 stores. At the end of the day, there's only about 30 premium cigar manufacturers out there. It's not a lot, but there's a lot of consumers that are passionate about cigars, and there was no place for these guys to harness their energy, because they were just as upset as everybody else. They're like, what? My cigar that I'm paying $5 for now is going to be 10? or the one I used to buy for $50 a box is now going to be $150? You kidding me? I won't pay it. So we're like, all right, there's no place for consumers that they can be represented saying that they have the, we want to be able to smoke a cigar without having to get, screwed by the tax guy or the outdoor smoking bans. There's so many issues. There was a lot of support for it. But at the end of the day, what we needed was just to get it done. Somebody's got to take the lead to get it started. You can have Keith Park, the guy that owns Prometheus and Godfire Cigars. Keith says, Jeff, let's just get this thing started. We'll get it started. Let's do the work. Help me out. Let's do it. I said, Keith, I'm on. So Keith and I just went to work. We just went to all the manufacturers, said we need this amount of money based on what size your company is. We need you to be corporate sponsors. Fund this thing. Get it going. What CRA has morphed into is not only a consumer organization. Remember we talked about the CAA, Cigar Association of America. They do great work. They've been around for, 50, 60 years. The problem is that industry food fight, let's call it, where you have the mass market guys who pay for the most of the CAA, and then you have the premium guys that just make handmade cigars, which is a fraction of the industry. Right now, the quote cigar industry, when I say cigar, that includes filtered cigars because those are now considered large cigars. That category is approaching 13 billion units. That's with a B, 13 billion. Now, in return, these premium cigars, our handmade premium cigars, this is only around 250 million. We're a fraction of a fraction. So when the CAA has these divisive issues, they take a role of neutrality. However, the companies that are mass market don't take a role of neutrality. They take an active role opposing what the premium cigar guys want to do because they don't like separation.